welcome back to On Track GP, where today we're going to have a little chat about the race that we just had in Azerbaijan and also a chat about the sport in general. There's a lot of talk around at the moment about people saying they're a little bit disappointed in the way that the races are going. I'm joined by lovely Sam from planetf1.com. Sam, let's go straight away into Baku, Azerbaijan. Overall, what did you think of the race? What did you make of it?
I think it's got an early contender for worst race of the season. I know we're 4 races in, but I mean, looking back, what realistically happened? We had the red flag for De Vries, but even that wasn't a dramatic crash. Obviously, we had the Verstappen pit stop, but that wasn't really a team error as such. So it's just bad timing. Like there was no real huge moment that happened. Really, it was just 2 hours that came and went. Really, and which is surprising for Baku. Like you sort of expect a bit more excitement, but for whatever reason, we had drivers pretty much driving their own little race. No one really getting close to each other, and that was it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things that really, for me, stood out about that race. The first was we saw 13 overtakes in Baku across the whole race, which is ridiculously small numbers. Why do you think that is, Sam?
It's hard to tell, really. I think well, obviously you had these 22 regs that came in. The goal of that was to sort of make it easier to cars to follow each other. And then now we're hearing more from the drivers that it's become how it used to be in the past, where they just can't follow each other without losing so much performance that they can never overtake. And the fact that it's happening in Baku, where it's got ridiculously long straights, it's got DRS wide open, like the fact that cars can't overtake there does sort of show that, yes, there's a problem with that maybe. And it's sort of to do with the ride height, which has obviously been raised, because of a porpoising last year. But yeah, it must be something in that, the fact that cars just can't follow each other. I mean, the fact that Esteban Ocon was on his old tyres till literally the very last moment of the lap, and people behind him on fresher tyres couldn't even get close to him. That sort of demonstrates that point really well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you say, he went 50 laps on a set of old, not even they were hard tyres. They're not even quick tyres. And he did the whole race on them, and no one could get past him. I mean, that shows that there's clearly something going wrong. Apart from that, though, we have one team that are just flying, yet to lose a race. They're and they seem in a different, like they're doing a different sport to everyone else. Red Bull, it's unbelievable what they've managed to achieve under these changes that everyone else has struggled with so much. Red Bull are absolutely flying, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear that Red Bull have just absolutely nailed these regs, and everyone else is playing catch up. Really, I mean, there's a well-known story that Adrian Newey. He did it part, I think maybe part of his uni degree, or maybe he went back to uni to do it, but he did it about ground effect, which is obviously massively important last year. So he sort of had a head start. And if you give an Adrian Newey a head start like that, you're so far ahead of everyone else. So they really nailed it last year. And the other teams have tried as they might, they just haven't been able to catch up this year. And obviously Red Bull aren't standing still. Red Bull have been able to improve on last year's car, make it even better. So yeah, I think we go into every race sort of expecting that it's going to be which one of the Red Bulls is going to win it. And so far we're equal, which is probably not a lot would have expected at this point, that it's 2-2. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to take a lot for a team to catch up with Red Bull, but then overtake them. That's a very tough ask.
Is it too far to say that the constructors is complete for this season?
I don't think it's too harsh to say that. I mean, they've won 4 races already. I think they've got 1-2s in all those races. I could be wrong. I think Perez didn't get on the podium one, but anyway, they've got a hefty amount of points already. It's going to take some either collapse or one team to absolutely blitz it and storm up the grid. I think if you look at every other team that are sort of challenging for that top part, you could say that one driver's doing well and the other driver's not so much. I think, obviously Alonso's doing better than Stroll. Leclerc, when he finishes, tends to do better than Sainz, and then Hamilton's sort of done a bit better than Russell this year. Whereas in Red Bull, both drivers are fairly equal so far. They've both won 2 races. They've both been on the podiums multiple times. So I just think that factor combined with a very dominant car just means this constructors does look pretty sewn up already.
Which is just, I mean, isn't that crazy to be talking about that 4 races in, and we're basically saying, Red Bull have won first, so we'll just move on. And so I guess that battle for second now is going to be interesting, because we have a team that we weren't expecting really before the start of the season. We thought they'd be quick. We didn't think they'd be this quick in Aston Martin, fighting alongside Mercedes and Ferrari. That battle for second is going to be very, very interesting, because they've all got, the cars all have slightly different things that they're better at. We know the Aston Martin is very good under braking. We know the Ferrari is very quick in the straights. So who do you see out of those three teams? I know we're only 4 races in. Who do you see taking that second spot?
Oh, tough choice. I mean, at the start of the season, I probably would have said Mercedes, and I'm still tempted to say them, even though they currently look the worst out of them. But I think it's obviously everyone's really interested to see what happens to this Imola race, because like Mercedes have talked loads about this one date being the day they're going to bring these new upgrades to the car. They're going to pretty much completely change their car. It's going to look completely different. So I think from that point on, what would that be, in 6 races into the season, something like that? So still plenty of time to go. And I've always sort of trusted Mercedes as a team that can develop very well. I think we saw that last year, where the fact they started so badly, yet by the end of the year they were winning races, a race, not races. But I think Mercedes have always been a good team that sort of, once they get a concept that works, they can build on it and build on it. But saying that, I wouldn't rule out Aston Martin. Like, they've obviously got some very smart people in there. They've got this massive HQ they're building at Silverstone, which I think is going to be ready early this month. So they're going to start moving over there soon. Like, they've got Dan Fallows, who obviously spent a lot of time with Red Bull. And then, of course, they've got the Alonso factor as well. So, yeah, I think while, unfortunately, P1 looks pretty sewn up, there is interesting battles up and down the grid. And I think that battle for P2 is definitely one to keep an eye out for. Because
no mention of Ferrari there, Sam. No.
So, yeah, I was saying, at the moment, there's no clear favourite. I mean, Ferrari need to get a bit of their act together. Like, there's still people leaving. Like, it's just a bit of a mess at the moment. But they do that. At least I think this was probably the most positive race for Ferrari this weekend. Like, the fact they got 2 pole positions, and then Leclerc got second in the sprint and third in the race, if I'm correct on that. So that's a hefty amount of points. That's probably their best to go on. So, like, they can go forward. So yeah, they're not out of it. I didn't mention them, but they're definitely not out of it.
Yeah, let's just looking down kind of those remaining 6 teams in the grid. We mentioned this quite a lot about Alpine. We're just not really sure what's going on there. There was, again, bigger expectation. We expected them, really, to be honest, to be 4th, not to have Aston Martin up knocking about as good as they are. But Alpine is just, the last couple of races, they've obviously had an absolute nightmare in Australia. Didn't really work out so well for them at all this weekend as well. Where do you think that's coming from?
Yeah, I just think they haven't really got going yet. Like, for whatever reason, like, obviously Ocon had the issue that made him start in the pit, so his race was pretty much over before it even began. And Gasly pitted very early. I think he was the first to pit for whatever reason that was. But yeah, it's like that car is yet to, I don't know if it's showing its true performance and it's lacking for where people thought it would be, or if it just hasn't got to its full performance yet. Because I think in most races, you can say there was like an outlier as to why their race didn't go well. Obviously, Gasly started from the back quite often. Like, it doesn't help them. Like, they had that crash last out in Australia. Like, yeah, I just think for whatever reason, they've had a few issues in these first few races, and like, maybe they'll start to get good at some point. But at the same time, like, the longer they do that, I think top 4 are going to be well ahead. And then it's sort of that P5 battle for McLaren, who seem to have turned a corner this weekend. So yeah, like, they can't keep saying, oh, it's one of those races, like, it'll get better. Like, you've got to start doing that work quite quickly.
Yeah, it becomes an excuse too quickly, doesn't it? And one last question on those sort of best of the rest guys. Who do you see as the best of the rest drivers so far, the overachiever in those other 6 teams? Who would you say the one that sort of stood out for you so far?
Oh, tricky question. Do you know what? I'm going to say Nico Hülkenberg, because I think everyone, he came into the sport, no one really expected a load. Like, I think I mentioned in one of the previews of the race we did that his arrival in the sport was obviously more the focus on Schumacher leaving. So he sort of just like snuck in here. Like, no one really analysed him arriving. And like, I think he's done better than a lot of us expecting. Like, he's beaten Magnussen so far. Like, he had this race in Baku, was similar to Ocon, where he was just on this set of hard tyres forever. Like, and he was managed to keep up the pace. Like, fair enough, towards the end, he started to drop off more than Ocon did. But still, that's an incredible ability to get the most out of tyres. But I think he's just doing much better than expected. I don't think there's been a standout candidate in that back half of the grid yet. I mean, Albon's looked good, but he's had a few issues and he hasn't managed to score as many points as probably he thinks his race to deserve. And like, I think there's a lot of others who haven't had a great start to the season. So yeah, I'm gonna say Hülkenberg is the surprise so far.
Nice. And just before we wrap up, then Miami next. Where is it? Just there. We're not far off. You got high expectations about it? You think we're going to see a bit more excitement around that track?
I think excitement around the track is probably the best way to put it, because I think the people that will be around the track is like some of the glitziest names you'll ever see. I mean, I think the jury's still out on this Miami track. It's a bit odd, really. It's like another street circuit, but it's in a car park, so like you don't have those spectacular views. I mean, you've got the Hard Rock Stadium, but like that's sort of only used for the podium area, and you've got, it's just sort of like there's a few corners I think it's still a bit too tight. I mean, I think that last sort of section is definitely, the drivers complained about it. They said it's a bit too tight to have any kind of like real racing. You have to really kill your speed to go around there. Like, it hasn't really shown itself to be a good track yet. But I mean, hey, that's one race. Like, it might be fantastic this week. I mean, it's got a low bar. It's got a low bar to beat from Baku. So if it's more interesting than that, then that's good. But yeah, like, hopefully something happens. Again, it's a street race, so maybe there's a few red flags or there's safety cars. So
let's see. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of picks up, and because I know that, you know, the guys at the top of the sport, they want it to be entertaining. That's why they're having these street races. And so people talking about F1 being boring is the last thing that they want. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. All right, well, you can stay up to date with everything about the Formula One with us here at On Track GP. Sam, thank you so much for joining me, Sam from Planet F1. And don't forget that we are running big competition at the minute. You can win a PS5, details right here.
Competition time again, and here is a chance to win a brand new PS5. All you got to do is subscribe to On Track GP on YouTube.
Also follow us on Instagram at OnTrackGP. Make sure you like the competition post, it's pinned on Instagram as well.
You can win yourself this right now. What are you waiting for?
Can I enter, or can I have a go?
No.